Welcome to today's NACE Connect session, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Excellence Awards. It's my pleasure to turn it over to session facilitator and NACE past president, Norma Gaier.
Hi, everyone. It is definitely my honor to spend at least an hour with you today as we celebrate our best practices and approach and leadership in promoting and living diversity, equity, and inclusion in our work. The programs that you will learn about today are exceptional and have in many ways been trailblazers to help us think differently and to help us ensure that as we engage in our work, both on a campus and within our organizations, that we are mindful and keep at the forefront the immense importance that inclusive practices have on ourselves, on our teams, and certainly on all of the students and other constituents that we serve. So our panelists today will share their lessons learned, and they will highlight some of their thinking, their approaches to the important work that they've engaged in. We will watch the chat. So if you have questions along the way or you want additional clarity on some of the great initiatives you will learn about today, please put your question in the chat. And then following the event, NACE will aggregate all of the information for this session and we'll share it out. Also, just a quick reminder that our NACE online community remains an excellent resource. Should you have great ideas that come from this or additional questions, I encourage you to use the NACE community to engage with our incredible NACE members and continue this important conversation. So let's get started. So we have a couple of different, there's 6 different programs that you will learn about today. So today you will hear from Brian Case with PPL, David Eckstein with Swinburne University, Amanda Machonis with Westchester University of Pennsylvania, Gracy Sarkissian with NYU, Lynn Schroetter with Abbott Laboratories, and Ayanna Wilcher with Kpmg. So really I'm happy to serve as your facilitator today. And I'm going to kick us off here and let's get started with, why don't we just go in order? Brian Case with PPL, if you can get us started and tell us a little bit about your program and what sparked your interest in this particular initiative that you engaged in.
Thank you, Norma. I appreciate the introduction and the opportunity to be here today with all of you. PPL, for those of you that may not be familiar, is an energy company, one of the 10th largest stockholder-owned companies in the US. And we are headquartered in Allentown, Pennsylvania. And I'm very proud to say that in an industry that is probably typically very conservative, PPL has typically been on the front edge of trying to introduce very positive change. And business resource groups, some call them employee resource groups, PPL was out in front of that with first business resource group probably about 20 years ago. And very proudly, our CEO was one of the first 50 in the US to sign the CEO pledge for diversity and inclusion 3 years ago, when that initiative was started. So our most recent addition to our business resource groups is called REACH, and that stands for Rallying Employees Around Challenging Histories. So it is our business resource group that is dedicated to those with different abilities, employees in our organization, as well as employees who may be serving as caregivers for someone who has a different ability. Our business resource groups in general have three focus areas. One is career, one is community, and one is collaboration. And with those three focus areas in mind, our REACH business resource group, along with our talent management group and human resources, wanted to collaborate on an opportunity to provide some outreach to a group that is certainly very, very underrepresented in the workforce. And that would be those on the autism spectrum. So we looked at collaborating with the business resource group with a potential university partner. And we are very fortunate to have great partnerships with a number of universities. Westchester happens to be one of them, Amanda. So nice to see you on here. And we were very fortunate that one of our partners was also looking for an opportunity. And we reached out to one another at a moment in time, and we envisioned creating a day in the life that would provide students on the autism spectrum with the opportunity to experience the real working world in a safe environment where they could come in and explore and learn and feel safe to ask questions and take advantage of the opportunities provided to them, while also educating them on different career avenues and opportunities in the energy sector. So the day was a tremendous success, and I'll look forward to talking more about it as the questions continue.
Thank you, Brian. Okay, how about we kind of stay on the same track and look at the Kpmg Passport to Success program. Ayanna, can you walk us through your process and what sparked your interest in creating this program?
Yes, and good afternoon, everyone. And again, Norma, thank you so much for having me be a participant on this panel. One of the things we are definitely proud about is the Kpmg Passport to Success program. And similar to Brian's case in terms of partnering with a university, we were able to successfully partner with the University of Maryland at College Park on the development of the program. And what started it is my colleague Tania Stewart and I, we were trying to figure out ways in which we would increase our diversity, our ethnic diversity pipeline. And during that time, about 4 years ago, there were studies that were going around that talked about how as the cost of college education was rising, there were an influx of students starting to go to community colleges, doing their 2 years there, and then making that transition to a 4-year institution. Also in that research, we realized that a large number of those students making that transition was a population that we were looking for from our Hispanic, Latino students, as well as our African-American students. And so what we first tried to do was figure out which universities was having some type of infrastructure around these community college students that were transferring to their institutions. We had identified one school early on and then realized that that infrastructure was not necessarily there. But at the time we were getting ready to move on from that one school. We identified University of Maryland, working with Courtney Biggers, who has this who had this boot camp for community college students. And then from there, we decided, because there was this infrastructure in which the university is allowing or has identified these students and working with these students into a boot camp program, we would build onto that program and kind of provide some additional support. And so what our Passport to Success program is, a multifaceted program that provides a passport as well as co-facilitated series that we help and provide to students. Our whole goal and effort is to make sure that we are providing that launch pad that's going to allow them to be successful. Because oftentimes we realize these students are the ones that are getting lost when they're making that transition. And that also too, that's a really good pipeline for us. So we partner with the University of Maryland. We develop a passport in which students have to do components of the passport, which are things that they should be doing anyway when they're coming into their first year. Some of the components consisted of meeting with your professor during office hours, meeting with career services, attending an employer information session, and then also to completing an essay in terms of making sure that they're very reflective of their experience. And then we would meet with the students once a month. We would have in-person meetings, and then we would have also virtual meetings. Our very first meeting, once the students had applied and had been accepted, we had one-on-one meetings to understand what they were coming from, what challenges, what were some of the things that they were going through, to really get a chance to learn the students. And then we made sure that the program was tailored to that population of the students that were coming through. We've been quite successful as we just completed our 3rd year of this program, and we've had over 56 students that had completed. So that's a little bit about the program, and I look forward to talking more about it as we get into the program.
Thank you, Ayanna. That's incredible. And yes, we will dive a little deeper. And so both the PPL and the KPMG programs were awarded the Employer Honorable Mentions. Again, congratulations for your incredible work to both Brian and Ayanna. The actual employer top spot, the winner, will feature Abbott, right? So Lynn, I'm gonna turn it over to you to share a little bit more about your program.
Thank you, Norma, and thank you everyone for being here and listening to us. And I'm so proud to be representing Abbott on behalf of our program. To talk a little bit, I have to do a little bit of history before I jump into the program we're specifically talking to. So back in 2012, Abbott launched a high school STEM internship program. And the reason that we did that was, as you probably are aware, the statistics around STEM are fairly alarming, especially in the US, especially as it relates to females and minorities. And so we knew that we needed to do something in order to address that gap. We started our program in 2012 with 3 students in 1 location within one of our businesses. As of this year, we have just under 50 students across 9 different Abbott sites and locations around the United States, and a couple outside the United States as well. And one of the things that we knew going in is we could do some amazing things with these students. We provide development opportunities. We work with them on, again, most of these students, they're sophomores, juniors, and seniors in high school. So they haven't had real work experiences for the most part. So we offer them development opportunities. We offer them a variety of different trainings and things to prepare them for being in a business world. But more important than that, we offer them an opportunity to work in our business with other engineers, other STEM professionals, so they can really get an understanding in high school. Okay, if it says that I want to be an electrical engineer, what does that look like? And how does someone practice that in a work environment? And, what would it mean to do that even in various businesses? And so we're proud that we're able to offer that experience to students. We knew early on that we couldn't do this alone. This is not something that, again, the statistics are pretty alarming, and Abbott is one company. And so we're certainly doing our part, but we need other companies to do what we're doing. And when we would talk to other companies, we would hear like, yes, I really want to do this and it's a great idea, but resources are generally an issue, and especially human resources in particular, it can be challenging, or business resources. So we decided to publish our blueprint. And so last year we put a blueprint together that really outlines the areas of critical thinking. If you want to launch a program just like ours, what do you need to do? What are kind of the templates, the tricks, the tools? How do you develop the business case, and a variety of other actions that will help anyone just like us, whether you're a corporate environment or a nonprofit or anyone else that just wants to get involved and wants to support a program like ours, could launch their own program. So again, happy to answer additional questions, but really, really excited to share the program and to share the blueprint with anybody who wants to learn more about it.
Thank you, Lynn, and what a great approach to the work too, right? I mean, I often tell folks who perhaps don't work in the career space in higher ed that I so appreciate all of my colleagues on the employer side, on the career services side as well, because we are almost an open book. We will share anything we can for the greater good of preparing our future workforce, right? So this is a great example of that work at play. So thank you for sharing that, Lynn, and in that context. Okay, we're gonna hop over to the college side. And I'm gonna turn it over to David, who will talk about the Accessibility Careers Hub.
Oh, thank you very much, and thank you everyone for having us. It's great to be here from the other side of the planet to talk about the Accessibility Careers Hub at Swinburne University. And our goal with the Accessibility Careers Hub was to help students with disability better understand their career management challenge, so that they could take more control of their circumstances. And the feedback that we've got from students who participated in the program is that it does just that for them. They feel more in control of their circumstances. They are able to prioritize the development of specific aspects of key career management skills that matter to them. And of course, they're able to negotiate and get work, including coveted graduate programs that they wouldn't otherwise have access to. So it's been a wonderful thing to be involved with. Like all great ideas, it had its genesis with input from lots of different people, including our Vice Chancellor and our industry partner, Wise Employment. So by the time it filtered its way down the food chain to me, it had been an idea that had a lot of support from within the university. And I think the thing that that surprises me about this is the extent to which the students have embraced the program. It's a challenging thing to be involved with, but this very diverse cohort of students appears to be very, very good at doing difficult things and trying difficult things. And that's been a wonderful thing to be involved with. I'm happy to say some more about that, but I'm just mindful that other people need a turn as well. Is there a particular thing you'd like me to follow up on?
I will come back to you, David. That was a very nice overview. Thank you. And you touched on a very important point, again, in the spirit of the work that we do, and that's collaboration, and how each and every one of you have touched on the fact that this was not something you could do alone. It really does involve effective collaborations and partnerships. So I appreciate you expanding on that a little bit for us. All right, so I'm gonna ask Gracy with NYU to share a little bit about her program, the International Student Success Initiative.
Great, thank you, Norma. So NYU's program was more of a broad initiative that utilized efforts of folks across the university, and more than a program. And I have to say it's thanks to so many colleagues, employers, and other universities at NACE over the past few years, learning about the great ways in which they've been embedding career support into the overall experience for students and the way that that's increased access for different populations. And so that's been a great lesson that we've been able to take and integrate into our work at NYU. So the International Student Success Initiative is a comprehensive embedded university-wide approach to supporting the unique career-related needs of our international students. We launched this primarily because over the last decade, NYU's seen about 170% of an increase in enrollment of international students, and they currently comprise about 30% of our student body. They have different challenges, particularly recently, sponsorship is difficult, and that creates not just job search challenges, but it creates anxiety and all sorts of other issues that come up for students. So we wanted to make sure that we were meeting them where they are and supporting them effectively. So we took a three-pronged approach. The first approach was really to focus on student career readiness and skill development. So this included creating a student-centered career education curriculum and on-site coaching at accessible locations across our campus. We hosted monthly career workshops at our International Student Center on topics specifically of concern to international students. And we wanted to give them a space to engage with peers, share anxieties, and sharpen their job search skills. And then we also provided individualized coaching appointments across campus, but specifically at Student Link, which is NYU's centralized hub for student services. So when they're going to get academic advising or learn about studying away opportunities, they also have access to our coaches and our team. So the second prong was increasing access to guidance and to resources. And this really took a lot of work around equipping a network of support for students. We trained faculty and administrators, over 250 in our first year, to have career development conversations with students in order to expand support beyond the Career Center. And then we think it's great to educate students and create support at the university, but the third and probably the most important was really enhancing student access to global employers and professional opportunities, both in the US and abroad. So we launched a university-wide global employer engagement working group. We had folks from Wasserman Center, which is our main career center, but we had folks from the law school and MBA and Tisch School of the Arts and engineering school, folks across campus come together where we looked at hiring data, identified key regions to target, figured out ways to better align our practices so the experience from the employer side was easier to engage with us. And we created more cohesive marketing marketing materials and launched a Higher Violet marketing campaign. And I have to say, we've received great feedback from students and participation. But one of the key things that I think has been so great for our team is that it's really elevated our office to be a key player in understanding the needs of international students. And so we serve on university-wide working groups on a variety of issues that impact the international student experience. So I will stop there, but I hope that gives you a good understanding of our goals and the way we approach the program.
Great, thank you, Gracie. Lots of amazing work at play there to support international students. So, and I know we'll unpack some more of that as we continue on the program. So the both David's program and Gracie's program won the honorable mentions in the college category. And the winner in the college category for the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Excellence Award went to Westchester University. So I'm going to turn it over to Amanda at this time.
Thank you. For those of you who may not be familiar with Westchester, we're a public university. We're the largest in the state system, and we're in the greater Philadelphia area. So our program, the acronym for it is CALM. So that stands for Connect and Learn Meetup. We wanted to use the meetup language because we have, like many career centers, started doing like industry-centered meetups. And we eventually came to let me back up. Over the last couple of years, we've really built a strong partnership with our autism program on campus. I think that's been around for about 4 years now. And as that partnership was developing, we realized we were probably underserving, especially students with autism and generally students with disabilities, because we tend to have, large scale career fairs. And for someone on the spectrum, especially an event with hundreds of people walking around, the noise level and proximity to others and lots of other things, that makes that nearly an impossible ask for students to go there, right, and connect with our employers. So between that and just knowing that students with autism are chronically unemployed or underemployed, even when they do have a bachelor's degree, we wanted to make an opportunity to connect our students with employers, especially employers in the area that have, you know, specific onboarding programs for those with autism. So with the partnership of our wonderful colleague, Sherry Fishbaugh, who is the Director of Autism Services on Westchester's campus, we put together a list of, you know, employers to contact for that, keeping it small. I believe we had 7 employers present, and, you know, sent the invitation out to all the students in the DCAP program, the autism program, and those with other disabilities. In the DCAP program, there's about 50 students, and we knew that, you know, not everyone can make it, but we really worked hard with Sherry to try to find a time that was, you know, conducive to as many people's schedules as possible. And so the event had 19 candidates attend, and like I said, 7 employers. So definitely a much smaller scale event, but it was really great because they were able to make those individual connections. And we were so proud because students really, they went even further than we thought they would, in the sense that despite what their major was, they tended to talk to most of the employers that were there. And we did try to focus on, you know, different industries, but, you know, we had a theater major there and some history majors, and they were talking to, you know, tech corporations and things like that. So we were really proud of that and happy to give this opportunity to those students. And this was the first fall that we did it, so we hope to make it a yearly event.
Okay, I was muted. There we go. I was saying congratulations on that important work, Amanda. And I know that I just wanted to unpack something a little bit with your program, that you had intentionally designed space for students to feel comfortable and confident and to connect with these employers. Can you tell us a little bit more about what went into the thinking of that space?
Sure, absolutely. We wanted to be in a space where students felt comfortable, right? So unfortunately, there's not a ton of space in the actual autism programs offices. So knowing that, I mean, we do a lot to welcome students in DCAP to campus. So we actually ended up using our office space in the Career Development Center. Just, you know, because it was somewhere that they knew. It was a location with lots of friendly faces. So we had it there, and we really did our best to we had high top tables. So we really did our best to spread things out and really utilize the space that we have there. And the other thing that we were really conscious about with Sherry's help was we had a designated space that was separate, that you could go back and you could shut the door in case any students were feeling a little bit overwhelmed or, you know, sensory overload. They had a place where they could go to kind of take a break. And that was very intentional on our part as well.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a broad-based question for our panelists, and any of you who would like to respond, I welcome you to chime in. As with anything, you know, we often set our sights on our goals and what that will look like along the way, along our journey as we develop new programs and conceptualize some new initiatives. But despite all the planning and forecasting, we often run into some unexpecteds along the way that, you know, in my opinion, end up being great lessons learned that help inform other thinking and other programming and initiatives that we might engage in. So I'm just curious, whoever would like to chime in here, but were there any big surprises as you were working towards your goals to to kick off these new initiatives and programs. And did you, so that's one, and another piece to that question could be, were there any results that you weren't expecting? So perhaps something additional came out of this that you didn't expect, and it led you to additional thinking.
I'm happy to start with that, Norma.
Okay.
We were so successful with the initiative that I had discussed earlier, very enthused with the reflection and the feedback that we had received from our university partner and the students that had attended. We were so enthused that we wanted to jump back in and do another program. And we identified another university partner that was very eager to participate with us. And we decided for the second round that rather than just focusing on students on the autism spectrum, that we would broaden it to students with disabilities. And the university that we were working with just recently changed their structure so that students with autism and students with disabilities all fall under the same organization at the university. So it would work well with expanding the program. So we put similar plans into motion and had the event ready to go. We worked with them on transportation for the students, and we were very surprised and disappointed when only a small number of students that had registered actually showed up for the program. So what we learned with that particular situation was that there was not contact with faculty prior to the students requesting to be out for the day. And a number of the faculty declined for the students to miss class. And therefore, they did not come to the event. Despite the fact that we had a much smaller group, it warranted even better conversation. So the glass half full results ended up being that during the session, one of the students was so enthused, they had declined 2 prior offers by employers, but they were so enthused by what they heard about the inclusive environment at PPL, they raised their hand and asked, what does one need to do who is graduating in December to be considered for employment? And as a result of that request, my boss, who was in the room, quickly exited and contacted one of the vice presidents of one of our operations areas. And the student had an on-the-spot interview. They graduated in December and they started with us a month upon graduation. So smaller group, lesson learned, make sure faculty is included, but the positive outcome was that someone was hired.
And Norma, I think I would like to share. I think one of the things that we have learned, I'm always about, if you're going to fail, fail fast and move on, and cut your losses when you can. And so that had happened at the first institution we tried to partner with. But then moving on to the second institution that with University of Maryland, we had a successful partnership. One of the things that we were most surprised by was the fact that we had like 95% of the students in that first class received internships. 80% of them were with Big 4 companies. And so many of the students in their essays spoke about how the fact that this program helped them to feel like they had that support to give them the confidence that they needed to engage in their search, because many of them came into the program almost with their heads down and feeling like they were behind because they were coming from a community college into a new school, and they felt like this program was additional support of individuals that really cared about them. And so that gave them their confidence, the security to feel like, yep, and also to understanding where the resources are, so that way they can get a head start. And so we were definitely pleased about that. And then lastly, the fact that we started to develop these cohorts, which are starting to bring others in. So our first cohort was successful in bringing in other students for the next cohort and kind of served as a pseudo mentor for them, and the second cohort with the third. And we still continue to keep in touch with them, although our first cohort is now in the job market, but they are still around, and we see like it's this family. So that was one of those unexpected benefits that we have started to develop from this program.
Yeah, could I add something to that as well, please? That for us, the issue of student engagement was a bit of a surprise. There can be some reluctance for students coming forward in order to take part. Even though we've had good uptake, it could always be better. And what we've found is that developing a student community of practice to help students support students has been integral to us developing momentum with student engagement. And that's something that has also helped our employer partners develop confidence in discussing matters with our students. And so we took those two principles and combined them to make a professional development event for our employers and for our students. And we had employers working with students to help shed light on how they can better have inclusive recruitment processes and programs, and it lifted everybody's confidence and of course created an important word of mouth with among our students to help develop the kind of buy-in that we need from them in order to give the program ongoing engagement from our student population and worthwhile student engagement as far as our employer partners are concerned.
Just to add to the conversation, this is not about my program, but what I'm hearing from so many of you is, you know, sometimes we put in so much effort to design these great, innovative, creative new programs, but really all we need to do is adapt the way that we're already doing things in order to make them widely more inclusive for our students. And, you know, Amanda was talking about students with autism, and, you know, yeah, a career fair is a terrible place for a student on the spectrum, right? The sensory overload and noise and smell. And so, you know, something small that we did at NYU was for all students with disabilities, we invited them to come to the career fair 45 minutes early. So we didn't change the event. We just allowed them to come early before it got crowded. And employers were able to speak with them one-on-one in a quieter environment, and we saw a huge percentage more of students who would never come to the career fair participated in the career fair because it just became a little bit more accessible to them. And we didn't do anything that was difficult, innovative, you know, that required anything special, but that small change made a huge difference.
Absolutely, yeah, I 100% agree with you, Gracie. Yeah, we certainly had students who had never really attended our events before, and some of them showed up early to our meetup and stayed the entire time, and that was really heartening to see. And I will say, just because of the success of this, it's really opened up discussion for other avenues. You know, how else can we be supporting students with disabilities? So obviously our efforts were a little bit thwarted in the spring, but we do hope to bring employers on board to do some like mock interviewing and just smaller ways to interact with our students with disabilities that way too.
Great, thank you. All great lessons, I think that will help inform many of our members who might be either already engaged in this work, as Gracie indicated. Sometimes it's just rethinking a little and shifting our thinking and getting a good handle on some of the best practices that each of you through your organizations have implemented is really, really helpful to help serve as a good resource for our members. I wanted to ask a question that kind of in that same vein, because your programs are Hallmark programs, or they would not be featured today. So again, congrats on that. Can whoever would like to kind of chime in and tell us what your thinking is. If somebody said to you, oh, I really want to replicate your program, what are some things that you might share with somebody who asks you that question? What are some first steps that folks might want to consider, or some perhaps particular barriers that you had to overcome first, or something that was really important for you to do in order to find success? How would you answer that question?
And Norma, I can take that one first if that's okay.
Sure.
So from our perspective, there were a lot of different people that needed to be involved especially when you're thinking about bringing high schoolers onto your company property. You really have to think about a lot of different areas, and we actually outlined it in the blueprint, but I think the first big thing is having the business case. Why are you even doing it? Do you have the case within your organization to be doing this? Is there a reason to be doing this? Whether it's within your organization or your community or wherever else. Also having a strong both HR and business support to do what you're trying to do is critically important, and really at the more executive levels, having to have somebody when it's something completely different and untried, having people from the business and the human resources side of things who are willing to step up and support that business case and take chances and help us ask some of those difficult questions that we're going with to legal and compensation and health and safety and all the various people that you do have to get involved in employment type programs. And so I would say really, like, do you have the business case, and then do you have the leadership support garnered in order to do something like this? And then what do you want from it? What are the outcomes that you're looking for? Do you expect to convert all of your students? Do you expect to get all of your students hired? What are you looking for out of the program so you can really build upon your success that way?
I would just say, ours was a university-wide initiative. So one, just be patient with yourself because it takes time. We spent about a year laying the groundwork, conducting focus groups with students to better understand their needs, identifying partners, developing and testing the curriculum, and then being okay with the fact that the work is never done, right? So we're equipping folks across campus to help us in this work. They need ongoing training, ongoing support, ongoing development. And we're also now thinking about how do we expand the program by training student leaders and influencers to support more peer-to-peer learning. And finally, and this I think is important across the program, but just to make sure that we have a really clear vision, particularly when we're partnering with folks whose day job isn't career services or talent or recruitment, because we can't micromanage folks outside our office who maybe are lateral to us or parallel to us. So they really need to see the value in the work and want to engage. So I would say those were at least my lessons learned from a program of this scale.
I would say, I'll chime in. Definitely echo what was said already with the partnerships. It's really, if you don't have, more than your department on board, you probably won't get the, the turnout or as much reward for the event. So, I mean, definitely that. And the other thing that we learned was just to be very careful if you're going to try to replicate a meetup like this, just be really careful with employers you invite and make sure they're really on board with what the mission of the event is, that they understand that, the vibe of the event is going to be very different and that they're committed, right? Because we had an employer who last minute canceled, and that was extremely disappointing for a lot of our students because they were expecting that employer to be there and really looking forward to the conversation. So I think really trying to get commitments from your employer partners is very important.
And for us, Norma, in addition to the internal organizations, facilities, security, involvement of our business resource groups, we also felt it was necessary to bring in one of our local VIA of the Lehigh Valley chapters. They provide autism services to the community. And we brought them in to conduct awareness and sensitivity training for anyone that was going to be involved in the day's events. And it was very educational for us in terms of, lighting of the rooms that the students were going to be in, setup of chairs and tables, and, how to welcome them, to make them feel comfortable. So it was very, very worthwhile time, and really paid off in terms of making the students feel comfortable.
If I may, I'd just add as well that there's a great deal of choice, that there's not just one way of doing things. And I really applaud the points about involving students in the design of these programs, because if we apply the counselling principles that we're all familiar with, if we create the right space for the students, they'll teach us everything we need to know in order to help them. And if we combine that with the interest from disability champions in industry, and there are so many of them, then it's very easy to come up with bespoke programs that suit our size, the amount of resources that we have, the amount of time we have, the kind of physical spaces that we have, and the specific disciplines that our students are involved in. So I wouldn't underestimate the amount of support that is there, including within our own organisations, because we have benefited from key support from within the industry liaison team from the Careers Office that created mechanisms for us to measure our own effectiveness right from the start. So we were able to measure our own performance from very, very early on. And I think that that kind of very broad notion of collaboration is key. And at a national level, a result of the Accessibility Careers Hub has been that we're now able to help other universities do the same kind of thing. And that was a colleague's point earlier, that this is a very collaborative and inclusive space. And our government's National Centre for Student Equity in Higher Education has awarded a fellowship to the program to put together blueprints for other universities to develop their own iterations of these programs. So I think the advice is not to underestimate the amount of support that is there in the community for these sorts of programs.
Yes, excellent points, David. Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to throw out a question just in light of where we all sit today. I imagine and can tell maybe some of you are sitting where I'm sitting, and that's at home. We are working remotely and at very high levels. And I had a question as you think about the programs that you have shared with us. What would you change, or what would you have to do differently to engage with the various populations we've talked about today in our remote environment?
Norma, I can share from an Abbott perspective. So although we are all working remotely, we are still hosting all of our internships. So college and high school intern program, we are still offering them as virtual internships. There's certainly a change. We're not bringing everyone together. They're not necessarily going into the plants and other locations, but we still committed work-based assignments. We did spend more time teaching them, how do I work remotely? Because it was a change for all of us, right? So we talked to them, we talked to their managers. Our senior leadership have talked to the managers about how to engage someone when they're working remotely that is coming from a high school environment. So we've been very fortunate to be able to still run the program that we have. Looks a little different. I don't get to see them in person, but we're still making a lot of touch points and a lot of engagements to keep them together and really experiencing what we want them to experience.
And likewise for PPL, we are also doing our internships virtually this year. And I think, ironically, the circumstances as they have been, where we're not always very active with campus events during the spring because most of our internships have been filled, the virtual environment has actually created many panel opportunities, interactions, recording of messages to students, congratulatory messages for graduation, various interactions that otherwise would not have happened. So I almost see this going forward as being yet another very, very proactive and feasible means by which to reach a lot of students, and particularly students with disabilities, you know, from an access standpoint, from a confidence and comfort level in front of their computer. So I think it will create probably great new opportunities.
We all care about this work, so we're going to figure out a way to get it done, whether we're at home or on campus or in our offices. I'll tell you, tomorrow morning I'm convening a meeting of the Global Employer Engagement Working Group. Our coaching and programming is all happening virtually, and I'm hearing from both students and staff that it's oftentimes more effective because students are becoming more vulnerable. You're seeing them in their personal space, and they're sharing maybe more than they would have with our staff and also with each other in those spaces. And then we've had to get a little bit creative for our career advising network, the faculty and administrators that work with us. We've created a summer newsletter for them. So they receive a series of resources and videos and trainings throughout the summer so they can keep up with what we're doing. And then we're doing a few deep dives around, you know, what are you hearing from students now, and how can we help talk you through those scenarios? So, you know, in the beginning, we thought things would be less effective and more difficult, and you know, that really hasn't been the case. People have not missed a beat, and we've just been able to keep going and, you know, trying to do better each time.
So for us, we were doing a lot of ours virtually, like half was in person and half was virtually anyway, because of where myself and my co-lead are stationed and where the school is. And so we had that impact that we were impacted with our end of the year. So our end of the year celebration, instead of it being in person, we did have a virtual celebration. And like you said, it was very good. We were able to meet the students in their own space. I think we had probably more of them participate because, you know, there's nothing else to really do at this time. But also too, moving forward, we're really hoping to follow whatever models the University of Maryland is doing and possibly still continue to roll it out, but it will be 100% virtual and not the half and half component. So that's is what we're hoping.
I agree with all of those points, but I think there's an equity issue at play as well. And that yes, there are benefits to different modes of engagement, but we need to be mindful that not every student has access to the right sort of space to to have a productive learning environment away from the university, and access to sufficient bandwidth and data in order to take part in those online sessions. I think that's something that we need to be mindful of. And there is also, I think, the phenomenon of virtual engagement fatigue. It's pretty intense, and so we find that shorter sessions spaced out over longer periods of time, over several days, is something that helps with us. And just with any other education intervention and design, it needs to be very mindful of the student's circumstances, including their own access to resources. Thank you.
I couldn't agree more, David. I know that in the States, many institutions utilize some of their CARES funding to support students who needed better access to technology in order to maintain that a high-level learning environment, and we continue at many institutions continue to look for additional resources and ways to support our students so that we do provide an equitable experience, learning experience, and whether it's in the classroom, out of the classroom, within programming, so that all of our students have access. Absolutely, it's an important part of the conversation, so I appreciate you bringing that in. I am going to just take David's cue. He talked about virtual fatigue, and I know that that is so true for many of us. We have about 5 minutes left. If anybody would like to say anything before we leave the stage, if you will, I open it up for any last minute thoughts or questions or comments you'd like to offer. And again, my biggest congratulations to each and every one of you for the work that you are leading. I hope that you continue in this great work and that you continue to share across our NACE platform, through the community, through the various modes of research and publications. We're all in this together, and together we can affect change and we can make a difference. Anybody else have anything else you'd like to offer before we say goodbye for the afternoon?
Norma,
thank you.
Compliments for your leadership in moderating. So thank you, Norma.
Yeah.
Thank
you.
Okay.
And could I thank everyone for this wonderful collegiate space. It's terrific to be in touch across the globe, and I think our students are tremendous. I also think they're very lucky to have these sorts of colleagues working with them. So just a vote of thanks from down under for everything that you're doing.
I wanted to say the same as well. I appreciate so much hearing everyone. If there's anything I can do to support the efforts that you're doing, if we can connect, I would love to do so. And as somebody who happens to be the mom of a child on the autism spectrum who's going to college next year, it means so much to me personally, the work that you guys are doing. And so kudos to all of you. And I'm so glad that you received this honor.
Thanks, Lynn. Yeah, I would echo that too. If anyone wants to connect, please reach out.
Likewise.
Same here.
Ditto.
And I will also mention, Lynn, and this may be helpful to you and your son. We, as a result of the work, are continuing the momentum, and we have just engaged with a company called Computer Aid, who has an Autism to Work program, and we will be contracting with 5 of their employees to do work for PPL going forward. So great opportunities there.
Excellent. Well, with that, with the high spirit of collaboration and unity within our NACE membership to champion this work and to make a difference, I commend all of you one last time. I have a feeling that we will be recognizing your work continuously, and I really do appreciate your willingness to share with others. I want to invite our participants to take some time to provide some feedback. So there is a survey to complete on this session, and we do appreciate you taking the time to do that. Okay, I hope that all of you have a great rest of your day. David, I think yours is a little longer ahead of the way than ours. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having us.
And with that, again, huge congratulations. Thank you so much for all you do.
Thank you to our speakers for a very informative session, and thank you all for attending. This officially concludes the webinar, and you may now sign off.